A very good morning, everyone. Hi, I hope everyone is doing fine and happy Sunday. Today, we've been doing a lot of webisode sessions on Saturday evenings, but today webisode session is something very interesting and also very insightful. This is not at all related to entrepreneurship, but this is about certain, life sciences that we need to know. And I think a lot of students already been joining on Zoom and also our portals. Hello, guys. I hope I know you have already seen the topic. I'm sure you guys have already researched about the doctors that are going to talk today. But let me just introduce about the speakers of today's webisode. And first of all, we have Dr. Vimi Bindra, who is a consultant laparoscopic surgeon at Apollo Hospitals, Hyderabad. And her areas of interest are gynoendoscopy and fertility, especially excision surgeries for endometriosis. So, Dr. Vimi has been referred by one of my friends, Tejasvi, and the minute Tejasvi was talking about what Dr. Vimi was trying to do and Dr. Shilpa was trying to do, I was very much connected. I thought, why don't we bring Dr. Vimi and Shilpa today to the episode and give certain insights to you all. And we have our next speaker, Dr. Shilpa, who is a dentist by profession and an endo crusader by passion. So she has been practicing over 16 years and thought of missing my clinic. And so she started her own clinic and she's been practicing. She's a dentist by profession. So today we have Dr. Shilpa and Dr. Vimi. They are going to talk about if at all the painful periods are normal in the teenagers or any woman. So over to you, Dr. Shilpa. Once again, thank you so much for joining our session.
Thank you,
And
Pawan.
for the discussion.
Yeah, thank you. Hello, everyone. Hello to all the students who are watching this session. I hope we will be able to provide some insights today. So the topic for today is period pains. Is it normal? So a girl's menstrual health is crucial to her well-being and also to the well-being of her family and the community. But too often, especially in the developing world, like developing countries like India, the mindsets, customs, and institutional biases prevent women from getting their menstrual health care that should be given to them.
Yeah, I think Dr. Shilpa will be joining in the next couple of minutes. So, Dr. Vimi, since when have you been, trying to create this awareness, and what made you to, start, to start campaigning like this?
I was doing awareness for a long time because I have a special interest with endometriosis, and there is a mismanagement and delay in diagnosis in endometriosis patients. So I have a passion for this. This lockdown and COVID came as a blessing, and this brought us together. Shilpa and I came together because Shilpa is an endometriosis survivor also.
Oh, okay.
So she herself is an endometriosis patient and has undergone several surgeries. Her diagnosis was delayed and she landed up with a hysterectomy, and unfortunately she doesn't have a child also. So she underwent a lot, and then she realized that people should know, being a dentist and being a doctor, her diagnosis was delayed and proper care was not given. Then she decided to raise awareness, and I always have a special interest for endometriosis, and I really want people to know about excision surgeries and all. So then we came together because during lockdown we had a lot of time, and we started raising awareness, started doing these programs.
Sorry, I dropped out.
Yeah, yes. Welcome back, Shilpa.
Welcome back.
It's basically selfless efforts from Shilpa that we are able to do more and more programs. Because me being a gynecologist, definitely I have an interest, but she is doing just for awareness, and our thought process was same. So we decided to come together and started doing these programs, and we got a very good response.
Absolutely.
So many patients are reaching out to Shilpa just to get the advice. They may not be from Hyderabad or Pune, but they just ask us what is right, what is wrong. We just guide them.
Great.
Yeah,
great.
Absolutely. Sorry about the break. So anyway, so I was saying that menstruation is still considered a taboo subject in Indian society, and even today, the cultural and social influences on people does create a major hurdle. So today we are going to break the silence with the talk on period pains. So Vimi, the first question that I think kids need to know is, why do we bleed on a period and why menstruation?
Shilpa, it's very important to know that this is a sign of maturity, or when your reproductive system is ready for the reproductive years, the menstruation starts. All girls and boys, both of them, go through a certain physical changes, emotional changes, and psychological changes after a certain age group. Maybe it starts from, for some, it starts from 8 years, and for some, it starts from 10 years of age. So this also brings about reproductive changes where nature brings the capacity for a individual to bear a child. So basically we get periods, the uterus and the reproductive organs prepare itself for pregnancy every month. And if there is no pregnancy, we get our periods. So this is basically a reproductive aging or a physiological phenomenon. There's nothing abnormal
That's
about it.
absolutely correct.
So this is absolutely normal, and you should accept it gracefully, this change in your body.
Correct. That's perfectly fine. So could you tell us what is expected during normal menstrual cycle?
So usually when menstruation starts, it is usually a 21 to 35 day cycle, and girls may bleed from somewhere from 2 days to 7 days. And on an average, a woman uses 2 to 3 or maybe 4 pads a day, but they can use tampons, they can use menstrual cups, whichever they are comfortable with. So this is a cyclical change which happens every month. So everybody will have a 28 to 30 day cycle. That is not mandatory. Some girls may have, it may extend from anywhere from 21 to 35 days. So nothing to panic if your dates go this way or that way, 2 to 3 days. And yes, it may be accompanied by mild cramps and mood changes during the menstruation or just before the menstruation. So as I was telling that regarding the periods, when they start menstruating, usually they should keep a track of their cycles. The young girls in the schools, they should be taught about the menstrual hygiene and how they can prevent themselves from infections and how frequently they should change their pads. All this should be taught in the schools, and parents should also be aware what are the myths related to the period should be clarified to these young girls so that
Yep.
they don't form misconceptions, which is a very common phenomena which happens if their parents or grandparents have told them something, they keep it for the life. They follow it.
What could be certain misconceptions there, Dr. Vimi? I mean, because talking from the student's perspective, I mean, like how? Yeah.
Yeah. See, what we are discussing today, the painful periods. For ages, parents and kids are being told that pain during period is normal.
Yeah.
And that is the biggest lie of the universe, I will say. Painful periods are absolutely not normal. Mild cramps, mild discomfort is okay. But if they are kind of killer cramps or if they hamper your routine activities, they're absolutely not normal. And the other misconceptions which are very common with menstruation related things are that girls are told not to go to the religious places. They are told not to come to the kitchen. There are some communities where they have a separate room for a woman when she menstruates. She should go there and stay, and she should not eat with the family members. So all these things are these are myths, and these are we should not practice these things. There is no scientifically, there is no problem with the menstruation. It's a simple physiological phenomena which indicates that you have all your reproductive system working normally. So these are the things we should make people aware that there's no need that a woman should not do her routine activities. She can play, she can do everything when she's during the periods. And if she's comfortable, provided she's comfortable. Some women are not comfortable doing some of the sports activities and all. That's perfectly fine. It's up to her. But there is no restriction from a medical point of view. She can carry on her routine activities and should not be restricted.
Got
Sorry,
it.
my
Got it.
network has been playing a little spoil sport today. So,
Got it.
anyways, so what, Vimi, what is the age of menarche, and when should parents get alarmed?
It's a very important question, Shilpa, because sometimes parents come to us when the girl has not menstruated at a certain age, when her elder sibling has menstruated or mother has menstruated, and they get panicked. Ki, my daughter has not got the periods. So average age of menarche is anywhere from 12 to 14 years, but they may start menstruating as early as 8 years or as late as 16 years.
Oh, as early as 8, is it?
Yes. Before 8 is called as precocious puberty in girls, and before 9 it is in boys. But
Okay.
if they have started developing secondary sexual characters, we can wait till the age of 16 years. And if they have not started developing any of the secondary sexual characters like axillary and pubic hair growth and breast development, then they should get alarmed by the age of 14 years. That may be primary amenorrhea, when the girl is not menstruating without any secondary sexual characters. So average age when she has started developing secondary sexual characters, usually they will menstruate by 12 to 14 years of age.
Okay, okay, that makes sense. I think a lot of parents would be at ease now, you know.
Yes,
So,
so many times women, mothers come to us, girl has started developing secondary sexual characters, but she has not started menstruating by the age of 13, 14 years. They really get panicked. So in that case, what
correct.
we do is we just examine the secondary sexual characters, and we reassure them and tell them to wait for some more time.
All right. And is it normal? I mean, I've heard a lot of teenage girls have irregular cycles. So, is it normal?
Yes, Shilpa, when they start getting the periods, that is the called as menarche, the first period it starts, we have a hypothalamic pituitary axis which needs time for the stabilization. So
Mhm.
it might take 1.5 to 2 years for your cycles to be regular. So suppose a
Mhm.
girl has started menstruating at the age of 12 years, we can wait till 14 years of age till her cycles are regular. Now,
Mhm.
there are two aspects of it. One is girls, most of the girls, 80% of the girls, I would say, they get delayed periods. Like they get once in 2, 3 months or once in 4, 5 months. But there is a set of girls, like 20% of these girls might get frequent bleeding. Now, frequent bleeding plays a role because the girl is, she will become anemic, she loses energy, she doesn't have a strength to do so many works, going to school becomes difficult if she gets 2 or 3 times in a month. So in those
Correct.
cases, yes, we put them on medication because that's really abnormal uterine bleeding. But that is also till the hypothalamic pituitary axis stabilizes. So it can
Okay.
be frequent cycles or it can be delayed cycle. Most of the cases we see delayed cycles, and we just reassure them, and we do not jump onto any treatments for that.
All right. Another major problem which a lot of teenage girls or even women for that matter face is mood swings. You know, crazy mood swings happen when a woman or a girl is getting her period or is about to get her period, which is called as PMS. So all of us have heard about PMS. What exactly it is?
So premenstrual syndrome or PMS is emotional and physical changes in the body, which might start a week prior to your periods. So some of the girls might experience mood swings, headache. Some girls experience vomiting, and they don't want to talk to someone. They don't want to interact. So all these changes happen. So what we do is there is a menstrual diary. In the menstrual diary, we have a variety of symptoms which are listed. Almost around 70, 80 symptoms are there, where a girl has to identify what symptoms she is having. So it can be a mild PMS or it can be PMDD, also the extreme form of PMS. So when it is mild symptoms, usually we can manage it through the vitamins. But if it is severe kind of disease, we need to address it because her routine activities get hampered. And that is absolutely not normal. So PMS, mild PMS is okay, like little bit of anxiety, little mood changes 1, 2 days prior, and as soon as you get your periods, everything resolves.
Hmm.
So that is normal, and you can carry on your routine activities. You don't need actually any treatment. But this can also present as an extreme form where they have extreme headache, They have anxiety, so much of mood changes. They feel like crying. They get suicidal thoughts also. So this is not normal, and this needs to be addressed and should be taken care by counseling, reassurance, and medication.
Perfect. So the parents have to have a big part to play in this. Please talk to your child if your child is going through any of these symptoms during the premenstrual time. Please check with your doctor. I think that will help your child to a large extent. So as a child, I used to have terrible period pains. Terrible is like an understatement to what I used to go through. But I was always told by, by the women, by the teachers, by the doctors that period pain is normal. So do you think period pains are normal? And are you supposed to have cramps on your period?
See, I was just discussing with Pawan when you were not there. So some of the misconceptions, and I was telling him this is the biggest lie of the universe. If somebody tells
Absolutely.
you that painful periods are normal. So pain, mild cramps or mild discomfort is okay. But any pain which hampers your routine activities, or you cannot get up from the bed, you can't do your routine daily course, you can't go to office, you have to skip your school, then definitely it's not normal. So what we call is killer cramps are not normal. So if they're hurting you so badly and you can't do routine activities and they do not subside with the simple analgesics, definitely it needs to be addressed, and it could be very early signs of different disorders, and most common of it is endometriosis. So Shilpa, this is my message to all of them, that they have to stop telling their children and others that pain is normal. I used to have pain. It's absolutely okay. My mother, my grandmother used to have pain. This is what they tell their children. So this has to be stopped, and she should be examined by the doctor. And if no problem, then she should be reassured, or she should be under the follow-up if these cramps are so severe that she misses her school or she can't do her routine activities.
Correct. So some kind of cramps, a little cramps are okay, but anything more than that, visit your doctor and talk to the doctor. So what are the causes of period pains? I mean, there might be a lot of reasons why it can happen. And when should one be concerned about period cramps?
So what happens is there are two types of period pains, what we call in our medical word. One is primary dysmenorrhea. Dysmenorrhea is a term for painful periods scientifically, and secondary dysmenorrhea. Now, primary dysmenorrhea is idiopathic, like there is no cause for it. And usually it subsides with a simple by taking a rest, or with a warm fomentation, or by simple analgesics. So primary dysmenorrhea, usually there is no cause, and this is attributed by the mild cramps or mild discomfort during periods. But secondary dysmenorrhea has several causes. Now, secondary dysmenorrhea may be because of infection, fibroids, pelvic inflammatory disease, adenomyosis, endometriosis. There are ovarian cysts which can cause, different type of ovarian cysts are there that can cause painful periods. So there are different pathologies, tubal pathologies can be there. All this can be the cause for painful periods. And most common of these is endometriosis. Endometriosis usually affects like 1 in 10 women. If we examine 10 women, one may be having endometriosis, and most of the cases it goes undiagnosed.
Correct. So you just said endometriosis. We would like to know more about endometriosis. What exactly is it, and can it happen to teenagers also?
So endometriosis, basically, it's a disease where what we say we have a uterus, we have two tubes, and we have two ovaries. Now, uterus, where the pregnancy grows, it is lined by a lining called as endometrium. Now, in endometriosis, this endometrial-like tissue, it is not exactly the endometrium. It does not go from the tubes and gets implanted. There is a genetic phenomena, or there is a theory of mulleriosis which explains it. that endometrial-like tissue is implanted outside the uterus also. It can be in the tubes, it can be in the ovaries, peritoneum. It can be actually in any part of the body other than spleen. So what happens is it also produces its own hormones and it grows, it causes a lot of inflammation, is carrying, and it gets stuck to other tissues. So this is the most common cause for painful periods, infertility in women. And it can also happen in teenage girls. That's why we are trying to raise awareness about it. If a girl complains of killer cramps or painful periods, it could be a very early sign of endometriosis. So this should not be ignored. Otherwise, she will have lifelong consequences because of this disease. As I said, that it causes a lot of fibrosis around the tissues involved. It involves the other organs. It gets stuck to the other organs. It destroys their ovaries. So it is very, very important if a girl says that she has painful periods, it should be addressed and opinion should be taken about it.
So when patients come to you with endometriosis, how is the pain in endometriosis described?
Oh, there are different descriptions by different women or patients who are suffering from endometriosis. Sometimes they say these are killer cramps. They say that somebody is stabbing the knife inside. They feel like somebody is trying to scoop it out, like somebody is scooping something from inside. So they describe it in a various ways, and usually this pain debilitates them and they cannot get up from the bed. They say they can't do any activities, they can't lift up weight, they can't do office work or school work. Girls most of the time skip school if they have this kind of pain. And because they have been told over years that this pain is normal, they start assuming that it is normal. And then they stop talking about it.
Correct.
Everybody has said that it is normal. So why she should tell every time or discuss about it when everybody dismisses her that it is normal? So different people have described it differently, and somebody says the swords are being inserted. Somebody says like scooping out, I told you. There are different ways. We have patients who come on stretchers with this kind of pain. So they can't even walk. And then when it becomes chronic, it can be throughout the periods, like throughout the month, not only during the cycle.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
It's a bad disease, and I think Shilpa knows better because she has gone through it, and I have a huge respect for her that she has gone through it and she is now actively fighting to raise awareness for it. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. My pleasure, Vimi. The thing is, what happens is when a child is dismissed saying that this pain is normal, it starts playing on the child's mind. You know, the child starts believing that it's normal and there's something wrong with my threshold, that I'm not able to take it. You know, so what I would ask all the parents is that if the child is saying that there is pain, please believe. You know, the child needs validation from the parents or the doctors that what they're going through is real. It's not that they're making up or it's a drama that they're trying to play. So the minute that validation starts happening, the child automatically is a little better mentally, and they're able to express themselves with the kind of symptoms that they're having, and they can be treated at an early age. So that gets me to the next question. How is it, that endometriosis is diagnosed?
See, one is clinical symptoms. Patients, there are various presentations with endometriosis actually. In some cases, it is speaking out, like patients have pain and they cannot take the pain and they come to us. Second is they went for a routine checkup and there was a cyst diagnosed.
Correct.
And third set of patient is people who are trying for pregnancy. So in 40 to 50% of endometriosis patients, it can cause infertility also. I know this session is for school children, but there are parents also listening to us. That's why I'm giving you a wider picture so that everybody understands what are the different presentations. So this disease is silent as well. Like the patient who present with infertility, that they're not able to conceive, they come to us, they usually have stage 4 endometriosis and they never had any pain. So this is also important that we pick up endometriosis at an early age by different means. So this is a silent disease in certain set of cases, and this is painful periods in certain set of patients. So most of the times we diagnose by clinical history and examination. Now on examination, we may find cyst, rectovaginal nodule and other area involvement. And then comes the role of imaging. Then we do ultrasound and if required MRI, and then we make a plan for the patient, what is best for her and when she should go for surgery, what kind of surgery she should undergo.
Okay. And if we don't address this pain, or we tell the teenagers that the period pain is normal, what impact can it have on their development, especially their ability to handle such situations?
Yeah. So already you mentioned a bit about it, that see, it's like a reflex phenomena. If we start telling someone that what you are telling is normal, she will stop talking about it. At one point of time, she will not tell that she is not able to handle it. Why? Because she starts comparing herself. Her mind is developing. She is too young to play a mature role. She cannot handle it because she starts comparing to her peers, her friends, that she also has periods and she handles it so well. This is I who is not able to handle. So there is some problem with me. That feeling, once it creeps in, it makes them weak, it makes them psychologically impaired, because this will impact their future life, their career, their decision making, everything. So this is a very sensitive issue which we don't think about the impact in the future life, because someone who is being told that what you are telling every time is normal, I have gone through this, other person has gone through this. So that means she starts feeling she is the one who cannot handle it. Everybody else can handle it so well, gracefully. They have pain, they do their work nicely, they do their homework, they can appear for the exam. But this is the one, this is myself who is not able to do it. So that feeling of incapability to handle a situation is very, very bad. And I feel my heart goes out to these children who have been instilled their mind that this is something normal which you are not able to handle. Indirectly, we are telling them that you are not able to handle.
Absolutely.
So this has to be understood by all the parents, all the people who are telling children that ये normal है, आप कर सकते हो, हमने किया है. So that's not correct.
Absolutely.
That has a huge psychological impact, which we don't understand it. If you study these individual personality, I think we can make out that what wrong we have done with their development.
True, that's absolutely true. I mean, the confidence that the child has in themselves goes for a toss completely, you know. So, how is endometriosis diagnosed?
I already mentioned that.
I mean, except for imaging, is there any other way which is in which endometriosis is diagnosed, if it is not caught on imaging?
Okay, so the gold standard for diagnosis is laparoscopy. So it may happen that sometimes we don't get any findings on ultrasound. That is mostly a feature of a peritoneal endometriosis. So we don't see anything on the ultrasound, we don't see anything on MRI, any investigation you do, we will not find anything, but the patient has pain. And the pain does not subside with the painkillers or analgesics. And it is hampering her routine activities. If we do laparoscopy, we will pick up the lesions which are only on the peritoneum, and these are the most active lesions, and they cause so much inflammation, and patient has pain, painful bowel movements, painful urination, and if she's sexually active, painful intercourse as well. So this is one thing where we should not dismiss if patient has pain and imaging is normal. We have to go for laparoscopy and diagnose it and treat it as well.
Correct. And what happens if endometriosis is left untreated?
One is, as I told you, that this causes inflammation and involves the surrounding tissue. So if we leave it untreated, there are a lot of also medical treatments available, Shilpa, for endometriosis, which will subside their pain or symptoms, but the disease keeps on progressing.
Yeah,
This
it's a
disease,
progressive disease. Yeah.
yeah, it is not cancer, but it is a locally invasive disease, locally progressive disease. It produces its own hormones. So once it produces its own hormones, it keeps on growing into the tissues. So suppose our endometriotic tissue is lying near the bowel, it might go inside the bowel also and cause obstruction. If it is lying on the ureters, it can obstruct the ureter and can damage the kidneys also. So if we
Correct.
leave untreated or we rely too much on medications, we may do more harm than good.
Absolutely, absolutely. For people who don't know, I mean, I had landed up in an emergency surgery for an intestinal obstruction caused because of endometriosis. So
So
it can be that bad.
yeah,
You know.
so this grows inside the lumen of the bowel, and it
Correct.
can cause what Shilpa said, that she landed up with an emergency surgery because of this. So
So
it
it
grows
needs to be
and
taken
it
care of.
silently grows. Once you are given medications like oral contraceptive pills, GnRH analogs, and there are newer medications, your symptoms will subside and you might feel happy that yes, I'm being treated for endometriosis. But you may be under the false impression of it and your disease is progressing and damaging your other organs. So you have to be very careful about it.
So, what is the treatment for endometriosis?
The treatment is laparoscopic excision. Wherever we see the disease, Shilpa, it has to be removed.
Correct.
Now, there are certain problems with this also, that it's a surgical treatment and people do not accept it at the first go. And most of them uh, ultimately land up with a medical treatment, and which is the major cause for disease progression and damaging their fertility potential and other organs. So the treatment is surgical excision. Wherever we see the disease, we have to excise it. There is one set of treatment which is widely prevalent and widely practiced by gynecologists, is burning of the endometriotic spots. That is called as ablation. Now, endometrial tissue, what we see on the surface, it is much more than that. It extends under the tissue also. That is called as iceberg phenomena. So if we, until unless we scoop it out, we remove it completely, we leave the disease inside, and that is the most common cause of recurrence also. So incomplete disease removal causes recurrence, and patient lands up with multiple surgeries one after the other without any relief. So excision is the treatment, and wherever we see the tissue, we remove the tissue. It delays the recurrence. There is no cure for endometriosis, but a good excision is almost near to the cure.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, the doctor, I mean, whenever you see an endometriosis, you have to remove it. That is something which is the standard treatment for endometriosis. Please don't believe in just taking medicines and getting done with it. It really doesn't do any good. It might land you up in more complications than you would have, if you actually treat it earlier. So, is endometriosis something which can be treated by a general gynecologist, or a specialist care is needed?
Endometriosis needs a specialist care. Actually, endometriosis should be a separate subspecialty. Like what happens is, as I told you, most of the times young girls are diagnosed with a small cyst called as hemorrhagic cyst, and they are being told that this is normal. And it happens when you produce your egg, there is some blood collection and it is normal, it will go away. And they do not follow them up. Ideally, yes, hemorrhagic cyst can be a physiological cyst, but ideally they should be followed up after 3 months. If it is persisting, it can be a very early sign of endometriosis also. Most of the cases, these girls, if they have painful periods, they are put on oral contraceptive pills or progesterones or GnRH analogs, and they are never offered laparoscopic treatment, and their disease keeps on progressing. A girl who was at 16 or 18 years of age, when she lands up at 30 years of age for pregnancy issues, then we see the endometriosis is so advanced, it has already damaged their ovaries, their surrounding structure, and she is unable to conceive. So this is the kind of damage it can do, and this should not be ignored. And you should always seek for an endometriosis specialist who can deal with it. And in case, whoever you are contacting, you should discuss about the excision surgery, what approach they are going to plan for you, what all they are going to resect, where all endometriosis is there. All that should be discussed pre-operatively before you take your decisions. We do get patients who have been operated and within 1-2 months they come back to us with their symptoms back because the disease was not removed completely. So this is very important that we seek for a specialist care for endometriosis. And surgery is only one part of it. It also needs a long-term care. So after the surgery or before the surgery, they should also do some diet changes. There is a pelvic physiotherapy or pelvic exercises for pain that should be taken care of. And there are some other modalities of treatment which can be incorporated along with this. So surgery and first surgery for endometriosis should be the best one.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You can't keep getting yourself operated again and again and again for the same thing.
I know.
Again,
You
something with absolutely five surgeries, and it's crazy. So the thing is, the first surgery has to be the best surgery. The patient, the parents should know what they need to ask the doctors. You need to be proactively asking the doctors about what treatment you're being given and what is the advantage of one treatment to another treatment and what exactly are they planning to do for you. So please be aware and please be your own advocate. I think you need to do that. Last but not the least, Vimi, any tips for young girls so that they can identify the red flags easily?
One is speak out if you feel that you're not feeling normal, because before menarche you were absolutely normal, you were doing all your activities normal. After menarche, if something has happened and something is restricting you from doing your routine activities, you have to speak out. Talk to your mother. If mother listens to you, she will take you to your gynecologist. And if you feel that mother is not listening, she's telling me everything is normal, talk to your school teacher. School teacher, principal, counselors. Nowadays, all the schools have counselors and they have a very good set of team. This will be addressed. Don't think that you're doing something wrong by doing that. And once you are aware, make others aware. And the second red flag sign is like if you have heavy periods, heavy bleeding, more than 4 or 5 pads a day, or clots are coming, you should tell your parents. And if you have prolonged bleeding, like more than 7 days of bleeding, you should always discuss this. Pain, we have already discussed that it has to be addressed. So pain, prolonged bleeding, and more bleeding in a day. These all are not normal. And if you have shorter cycles than 21 days or long cycles more than 35 days, these are not normal and this should be taken care of. If the earlier, the better. If you identify the problem early, we can give you the best solution, which will be good for your future life as well. And maintaining the menstrual hygiene and educating others. Once you are educated, you should educate your younger ones for the right menstrual hygiene and what are the red flags and when you can identify your problems.
That was like really informative. So as a closing statement, I think, India is still a long way to go with regards to following a good menstrual hygiene. So I'm going to give a couple of tips every girl should maintain, should follow to maintain a good menstrual hygiene. So first and foremost, change your pad every 4 hours. You should not be wearing one pad throughout the day. The first 2 days, absolutely 4 hours. And if on the other days, if the bleeding is less, but not more than 8 hours for sure. Clean reusable pads properly. I mean, there are some sanitary napkins which you can use, which you can reuse. So please clean them properly and read the instructions when you're using them. Third, keep your vaginal area absolutely clean. You don't have to use very harsh soaps, but you can use a diluted soap or the vaginal washes which are available. And sometimes just clean water should be more than enough. If you feel that you're having any problem, you need to see your doctor immediately. wear comfortable underwears. Use a cotton underwear when you are going through your period. Don't wear anything which is too sticky or you don't have space to breathe. So these are certain things which, if every girl follows, I think things would be much better. And from what we have said, if you have some signs of distress, please see your doctor. Please speak to your parents. The parents, please speak to your doctors, because that is the only way in which we can catch these girls younger and treat them. And if any of the schools or any individuals want to conduct some awareness programs or have any queries, please feel free to reach us personally. We will be very, very happy to help. So Pawan, thank you so much for hosting us. I mean, I think this was like a much needed session, and you guys made it possible.
Thank you so much, Shilpa. Thank you so much, Dr. Vimi. I think it was a wonderful session. I think a lot of questions popping up in our channels, but I think most answered. One is, I want, I mean, Ms. Himabala has asked, is it a concern if the kid has a painful periods, which is subsided by Meftal? And is PCOS a form of, a form or symptom of endometriosis?
So as I already said that primary dysmenorrhea, if it subsides with a simple analgesics, usually should not be a concern. Now, PCOS and endometriosis are two different entities. PCOS is mostly a hormonal disorder where girls have irregular periods, acne, weight gain, hair growth, all these symptoms are there. Endometriosis is a separate phenomenon. Sorry. Now, in many girls and women, we are seeing endometriosis and PCOS both together. So these are two different problems, and the presentation is absolutely different for these two disorders. So we do not confuse endometriosis and PCOS.
Okay. Okay.
And PCOS is also pretty common. 1 in 5 women is suffering from PCOS. This should also be addressed at the earliest. These lifestyle changes has to be done. Most of the kids, young girls and boys, they're not doing physical activity. Most of them are, one is online classes, second is everything is online, playing online, no outdoor activities, junk foods. So this is contributing more towards the incidence of PCOS.
Absolutely. Obesity is one of the leading causes of PCOS.
True. Yeah. So I think there are more questions coming up. What I'll do is I'll just write to you all, and your responses can be shared with them. I think most of the questions are anyways been answered by Dr. Shilpa has rightly put on a lot of questions. So I'm looking forward for many more such sessions. Dr. Vimi and Shilpa, thank you so much for taking your time on a Sunday and spending with our students. I'm sure I'm getting a lot of reviews also. I'll just share the feedback with you both, and then we can take next sessions further. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Pawan.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Have a great weekend ahead. Thank you guys. Thank you so much for joining, and have a great weekend ahead. See you in the next episode.